Jess had always hated staying late at work. The office was fine when it buzzed with life, with phones ringing and people moving from desk to desk. But after hours, the place took on a strange emptiness, and every sound seemed amplified in the silence. She'd always chalked it up to overactive imagination, the way she'd rush down the hallway with her head down and her coat pulled tightly around her, just wanting to get to the elevator and leave. But tonight was different. She pressed the button for the elevator, glancing at her phone. Midnight. She sighed, rubbing her tired eyes, just wanting to get home. The elevator arrived with a low echoing ding, and as she stepped in, she pressed lobby without a second thought, leaning back against the wall. The doors were almost closed when a hand shot between them, forcing them to jolt open again. Startled, Jess took a small step back, clutching her purse as a man stepped inside. His entrance seemed so deliberate, so slow, like he wanted to make sure she saw every detail of him. He was tall, slightly hunched, his hair a little too thin and greasy, his eyes a strange, almost black shade. His face held no expression, just a blank, eerie stillness. Jess felt her heart race a little faster, but she quickly looked away, fixing her eyes on the numbers ticking down above the doors. The air felt thick, suddenly too close, and the smell of sickly, rotting scent hung faintly between them. The elevator hummed as it descended, but the lights flickered suddenly, plunging them into a dim, unsettling glow. Jess's throat went dry. Her pulse hammered in her ears. It was like her body knew, instinctively, that something was very wrong. The man didn't say a word, but she felt him watching her. She could practically feel his gaze crawling over her, examining every inch of her. She tried to act normal, to keep her breathing steady, but her mind was spiraling. Why wasn't he looking away? Why did he feel so close? The elevator lurched, and with a metallic groan, it stopped abruptly. The lights flickered, then dimmed further. Jess's heart dropped as she realized they were stuck between floors. She reached for the emergency button, pressing it repeatedly. Nothing happened. There wasn't even a buzz, just more silence. The man was watching her, a tiny smile beginning to creep onto his face. "That button doesn't work, you know," he said in a low, almost mocking tone. Jess felt her stomach twist. Her hand hovered over her phone in her pocket, but when she checked, the screen was black, dead. Panic surged through her veins as she clutched her purse tighter, every nerve in her body on edge. "Looks like we're stuck," she said, trying to keep her voice steady to sound casual. But her words felt thin, brittle, as if he could see right through her fear. He let out a low chuckle, the sound hollow, empty. "Oh, we're not stuck. Not really. This is where I like to stop. Here, in this quiet little space. Just the two of us." Jess's breath hitched. The elevator was small, and he seemed to fill the entire space. She was backed against the wall, unable to look away, her eyes meeting his. She could see now that his pupils were enormous, swallowing any hint of color. She felt exposed, vulnerable, as if he were stripping away her very thoughts. "Do you know how many people come and go in this building?" he whispered, taking a slow step toward her. "So many. All alone, just like you, late at night. Trapped." Her legs felt weak, and her mind raced, searching for a way out, anything. She managed to stammer, "Please, I just want to go home." His smile widened. "Oh, you will, eventually." His voice was soft, like he was talking to a child, and that gentleness felt somehow even worse, even more sinister. "But first, I want you to understand something." He reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face, his fingers cold and damp, leaving an icy trail against her skin. She flinched, pressing herself tighter against the wall, wishing she could disappear. "You're my favorite kind of passenger," he murmured, his voice just above a whisper. "So scared, so desperate. You try so hard to pretend nothing's wrong, but I can smell it, you know? I can smell the fear." Jess's heart pounded wildly. She could barely breathe. She looked at the door, at the buttons, desperately trying to think of some way, any way, to escape. She banged her fist on the metal door, screaming, hoping someone might hear her. But his laugh only grew louder. "No one can hear you, Jess." Her eyes snapped to his face, her breath stopping altogether. How do you know my name?" His eyes seemed to sparkle with amusement. "I know everything about you. I know what you do. I know your routines. I know you always take this elevator home after midnight." Jess's skin went cold. She'd never seen him before tonight. She would have remembered that face, those dark, hungry eyes. "Did you know," he continued, his voice almost thoughtful, "that if someone disappears in an elevator, the cameras just keep rolling as if nothing happened? No one even knows. No one even notices." Her mind raced, images flashing before her eyes. She imagined her empty desk, her friends and family wondering where she was, slowly realizing she'd vanished. But would they ever know what happened? Would they even be able to find her? The man leaned in closer, his face inches from hers, his breath cold against her cheek. "They never find the bodies," he whispered. "No one remembers them at all." Her hand shook, and she struggled to keep her voice steady. What are you?" He tilted his head, as if considering her question, then grinned, his teeth glinting in the dim light, sharp and wrong. "I'm just a man who likes to ride. Up and down, over and over, waiting for someone like you." The lights flickered again, and the air felt thick, suffocating. The walls seemed to press in closer, and she felt a strange dizziness, as if the world was slipping away. She tried to scream again, but the sound caught in her throat, her voice stolen by some invisible force. The last thing she saw was his face, smiling as everything went dark. When the elevator finally arrived in the lobby, it was empty. The doors opened with a soft ding, and the security guard glanced over, expecting to see someone step out. But there was no one. He frowned, looking down at the little indicator lights. The elevator had come all the way from the top floor, but no one was inside. With a shrug, he hit the button to send it back up, the doors closing quietly behind him. And somewhere, in the depths of that building, the elevator began its journey again, going up, waiting for its next passenger.